We are here to begin yet another engaging panel discussion session on the topic Generative AI, Enabler for Financial Inclusion. For this, I would like to invite our special guest onto the dais, please. Mr. Arpanarghya Saha, Chief Digital Officer from Nippon India Mutual Fund. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vijosh Ammayath, Chief Technology Officer BFSI from Microsoft.
Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Ajay Vernekar, Chief Information Officer from SBI Life Insurance Company Limited. Dr. Bikramjit Chaudhuri, Global Head, Advanced Analytics and Data Sciences from Datamatics Global Services Limited. I would like to invite our speaker and moderator, Mr. S. Ganesh Kumar, former Executive Director, RBI, onto the dais, please. Thank you once again, sir, for being with us today. May I now request our moderator cum speaker, Mr. S. Ganesh Kumar, to take this forward. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's actually a tough session to handle, not because of the topic, but because we are standing between you and lunch. Therefore, we will try to make it as engaging as possible. I've got both on my right and on my left distinguished speakers here. Their introductions have already been made. So what I will do is, instead of trying to bore you all with what I did in the morning, I will do the least amount of talking, but I will try to just have a continuity of thread across what we want actually to talk. So what I would do is request my fellow panel members to give a small synopsis, a little bit into a peek review about what is it that they feel as what AI has got to offer. Not only in the area of financial inclusion, but also in the areas where each of them has got a great advantage and a specific experience in their area. So, no better person to start off than with Dr. Bikramjit from Datamatics. All of you know Datamatics as a company which has been one of the movers in the IT space for many decades, and therefore to take it along. Bikramjit, over here.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. And as Mr. Ganesh Kumar just mentioned, the topic is extremely hot, very interesting, and essentially we are looking at a future which would be path-breaking in many ways. Now, AI is not something that's new, right? The AI as a technology was prevalent even in the 1950s. So what has really changed? Why it has been the talking point? Why, for example, everybody is talking about artificial intelligence being the path breaker or the game changer? A couple of things have transpired. One is availability of data, and data across various streams, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, and not necessarily from conventional sources. But as I am speaking, I am generating data. I am generating information, I am generating insights. Every individual, when they act, they are generating that data. And those sorts of variety of data has really made the landscape very, very different. The second piece is about computing power. Computing power has changed dramatically from the last century to this one. And especially in the last decade, there has been transformative change in terms of the computing power, which is enabling a technology like AI to really come into play. Hardwares have become much less expensive, and hence it is facilitating the way, for example, AI as a technology, along with big data and other associated technologies, are now in a position and well poised to make a transformative change. And those changes are already seen, visible, as Mr. Ganesh Kumar was alluding to in his earlier talk. The things, the phenomena, the events that were conceived more as science fiction are no longer fiction. And that's essentially because all these have come into play together. Right? And second, a little bit about inclusion. Now, as a country, there might be a perception that financial inclusion is not really great at this moment in India. I think it's an absolute myth. So if you look into some of the other countries in Southeast Asia and all that, and if you do a comparison in terms of, let's say, banking account penetration, most of the countries you will see in the periphery, the banking penetration, bank account penetration would be around 50% in Southeast Asia. And in India, from 2008, where we had a 20% penetration, to now having more than 1 billion people having bank account, what was initially projected as a 5-decade journey has really been made in a decade time. And that's extremely transformative. And not necessarily it's been talked about in all forums, but if you look back, this has really been one of the most transformative changes across the globe. And that's because of some ingenious thinking, Aadhaar really coming into play, the simplified way the data has been captured, etc. So now if you look into both these aspects, the future is that having the foundation of financial inclusion and having the capability of AI in place, and India is really a hub of AI from the standpoint of talent, from the standpoint of applications, how the two things can now be built together and stitched together to take us into the next orbit, right? And that's really the opportunity that we're looking at.
Great. Bikramjit has actually taken us from the 50s till possibly 2047, which is what ICC is looking forward. Since he has covered the banking sector, I think it will only be apt that we cover the insurance sector. No better person to talk about that than Ajay. Maybe you can talk about your perspectives before I come back to my rightist friend.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you ICC to invite me for this great topic of discussion. I think for me, generative AI, being in IT, and I've been in finance, BFSI, essential for the last probably 25 years. And I think those of us who have been in the industry for decades know how technology has evolved over the last 20, 30 years, right? And I think the rate at which technology is changing and improving in its capability, it's just mindful. I mean, it's gone are those days where you would probably take a course or two, learn it for over a year or two, and then start to apply that technology in business or in whichever workspace that you have. Today, the cycle has changed, right? I mean, you see things changing faster than you can think of, the blink of an eye. For me, in technology, it is an opportunity as well as a challenge, right? I mean, the ability for each one of us to unlearn what we have done over the last decade is so difficult, and it is though an opportunity. It's a great opportunity. We've seen how AI has evolved over the last 10-15 years, and here is generative AI over the last 1 year. It has had a phenomenal impact of benefits, right? And it has just taken away the hard work and what we have learned over the last 20-25 years in all other software that we have learned, right? So for me, it's an opportunity for us to keep unlearning and learning new tech, emerging tech faster than we can think of. That's one. Second, I think the time in which we are, where we have a plethora of technology tools, right? All at the same time. I mean, Of course, this session is for generative AI, but generative AI is nothing but a tool of AI. Plus the enablers, like, you have GPUs, you have hyperscalers, right? You have the internet boom of 5G, which is just around the corner, right? In India and elsewhere in developed world, much mature. Some of these tools have all come together and converged into a great opportunity for the IT folks to lay their hands on by unlearning what they have done in the past, just get their hands on the tech pieces. And the other part of this conference is financial inclusion, right? It's been a great opportunity for us as a country in India with the large scale of population and reach that we have. No other country can showcase that opportunity, right? And that's the reason why you see a lot of interest from all over the world in a country growing country like India. To me, both of these, if they come together, I think we have a great story and a great self-satisfaction to deliver to ourselves and to our community. So for me, it's a great time for, I think, the finance specialists as well as the IT specialists to come together and collaborate to create history. And I think I'm looking forward for a great discussion around and see some great ideas to come from my colleagues to see how we get onto this journey at a fast pace to capture the opportunity that we have for ourselves. Yeah.
Great, Ajay. That was actually nice. You have brought in a lot of terminologies: learn and unlearn and relearn. A lot of opportunity. Yes, obviously we'll be talking about all that, and good that you have also talk about financial inclusion as a continuum from what Bikramjit said. Arpan, over to you now. He's got bubbling with a lot of ideas, so some of the initial comments from you before we go into it.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, and thank you, Bikramjit and Ajay, for those insightful opening statements. I'm Arpan. I work for a mutual fund company called Nippon India Mutual Fund. And till 2017-18, I had never invested in mutual funds. So I think that's the way we need to start off this discussion. When I hear about AI, it quickly takes me back to my childhood days, back in the city of Joy, where we used to have a kirana store. And we used to call it, a grocery store, a small store. And this gentleman knew everything that I would come to buy on the 15th of the month. And if I would ask him for something else, he would say, no, you guys don't use surf. You use Nirma, right? Washing powder. Okay? So that's the kind of intelligence our small format kirana stores used to have. And there was no machines, there was nothing. There was currency being handed over. And from there to here, right? So the way I look at AI, for me, that kirana store was actual intelligence. Today, that intelligence of the human mind gets into your machines, devices, we all work together, and we come up with something known as artificial intelligence. And it might have various formats. And the peak of reaching artificial intelligence, making it more intelligent in the times to come, would be absolute intelligence. As I mentioned, I work for Nippon India Mutual Fund, and 1 out of every 3 customers in India is ours. So that's a huge piece of data lying with us. Our relationship managers know the customers very well. Our mutual fund distributors know the customer very well. However, the customer is slowly moving out from a brand loyalty to a price point loyalty, and in our case, a return loyalty. what is the moolah for every 100 rupees that I'm investing and how can I maximize. With that, we have a lot of content, some structured, mostly unstructured, and people have started doing it themselves with a bit of a phygital touch, where they talk to their fellow counterparts. Now, this is a huge opportunity for India, for inclusion. A person who's sitting out there in Ludhiana, or even interiors, can use a $10 smartphone and start getting recommendations on what he should be investing in. And therefore, it's very important that we as an industry first associate AI with responsibility. AI by itself, intelligence by itself is a double-edged sword. All of you have heard that nobody can time the market. And yet, there are recommendations. And there are guidelines to them on what you should be recommending and what you cannot recommend by our regulator, rightfully so. But in the times of AI, it's going to be a much safer prospect where after learning and hyper-personalizing the customer, the needs, the zone, the demographics, AI can actually throw up close to right recommendations with certain disclaimers. It's going to bring in the kind of satisfaction that all your consumers are going to look for. Now I'll pause here and I'll say, okay, do I know much about mutual funds? No, my last job was with a startup unicorn called Stampede, right? But what it has taught me was that customers are variety different. Even your next door neighbor is very different to you, or your nephew who's probably operating the same computer is very different. So AI is going to bring a consensus to that in the times to come. Some predictiveness, and that's what we're looking at.
Very good, Arpan. That was a real synopsis of the focus that AI has on the customer, focus on how AI, perhaps he's given a hint whether it needs to be in some form regulated as a double-edged sword, as you were saying. But the important thing that I liked is that intelligence has been there from time immemorial for us. In fact, on a slightly jocular note, what is artificial intelligence? Sometimes I find these are paradoxical words. Intelligence is a naturally talent which has been given by God. And we are saying artificial to something which is natural. It's like saying artificial sweeteners extracted out of plants. Now, I don't know whether it is artificial or natural. But anyway, the last word on that is not yet heard. But before that, I thought I will now request Vijosh to talk about. Vijosh comes from Microsoft. In fact, I was debating in the beginning whether I give the opportunity to the technology player to start first or not. But for once, we thought, well, let the technology player have the last word. But it's not going to be the last word. He's actually bubbling with many new thoughts which he's going to talk, and about use cases. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you ICC for inviting me here, and pleasure talking to all of you. So let me start coming into the technology aspects. The first thing that I want to start off with is generative AI is not going to replace human beings. We see generative AI as a co-pilot for every task that you do, with the purpose of mission, with the purpose that we have to empower every individual and organization in the planet to achieve more. With that purpose, we believe generative AI will become a co-pilot to every task you do. Now coming down to, from that purpose, when you come down, if you look at technology over decades, and if you look at PC, personal computer, if you look at client server as a technology, you looked at internet, cloud, and now generative AI. You look at all of these technologies. The personal computer took more than a decade to reach at least 600 million of the population in this country. And every technology is measured by the rate of diffusion. Rate of diffusion being defined as how fast it reaches all those individuals and organizations globally and in the country, so that they can achieve more. Now that diffusion, in the case of, illustratively, a lot of you must be using Instagram. Instagram took about 2 years to reach about 10 million people. Now, ChatGPT has taken less than a year to reach that number. So, rate of diffusion of this technology is very, very high, higher than any other technology. And most of you would have read the book called Sapiens. And one of the defining moment in the history of mankind is AI. AI is going to change everything. So wanted to change that myth, if anyone has, that here is a ChatGPT toy which has come and it will come and go, which is not the case. It is quite serious. And now, talked about the co-pilot part, that talked about the rate of diffusion. Now, how is it going to help you? So let's start with everybody has an email. Everyone has some sort of tool that you use, like Word, Excel, or all of those tools. That's where you have Copilot, which means we come across students who make letter of recommendations and statement of purpose, etc. for admission to colleges. You go, your Copilot just creates it for you. You refine it by giving more context, saying that I am a computer science graduate from so and so place, and etc. etc. The Copilot keeps on refining it. That's productivity. So that brings to the central part of where is the value getting added. It's productivity. Then moving on from that generation to other to various age groups, from searching for a holiday to summarizing long email chains, to creating research documents, to creating white papers, to creating PowerPoint presentations. It's going to help you give the topic, it will create an outline, and then it becomes much more easier. That's productivity from an employee or a human being who works wherever or doing whatever task. Now coming to our country, we have, if you would have noticed, we have moved from UPI to digital public goods today, which essentially means that UPI was an application there to use. And today, if you, for the people who have watched technology in this country, there is a protocol called beacon.io, if you have seen. That's the basis on which a lot of digital goods have been made. ONDC is made. And digital public goods, so the Aadhaar that we use is already sold in other countries. It's not known as Aadhaar, it's an identity platform. And in a similar way, there is PAN card, which is sold in other countries. And when G20 was happening, we spoke a lot about the digital public goods being sold. So ONDC is a platform where every company, every financial institution will slowly start seeing their products being listed there. People can buy. So protecting that whole environment from threats, threat vectors, is something which generative AI will do. Think of all those people who cannot speak English or who cannot read English or who find it very difficult. There are senior citizens, for example, there are people who are educated and still, because of their age, they are not able to put passwords on mobiles. And think of a passwordless entry. Think of all those documents which are written, which can be just taken through a camera and digitized as is. These are all productivity possibilities which are happening. And in this, I would like to quote again, because we said DPG, digital public goods, you will have heard of Bhashini.com. I mean, Bhashini is government of Modi ji, when he was giving a recent speech to a predominantly Tamil audience, he was speaking in Hindi, while the people were hearing it in their local language, Tamil, or any other language. That's what Bhashini can power, and that's generative AI for you. So the diffusion in the society is not only ChatGPT, it's coming in various forms, and all the institutions that we work with are implementing to kind of improve productivity, the way they serve their customers, the way they internally manage their resources. So I intended by giving all these things.
Good, Vijosh. That was very good. See, people actually relate more when you talk about use cases, and that's exactly what Vijosh is trying to do. Starting from what AI does, whether it is predictive, generative, etc., up to ending with multiple languages. I don't know how many of you have subscribed to actually here. And then while I am talking in English, you are possibly getting it in Bangla or Assamese or Tamil. Jokes apart, I'll now allow the case study progress to take forward and request Bikramjit continue on this. He's got a lot of ideas on how to actually take it to the final beneficiary, who is a customer of any institution.
Thank you very much. So let me touch upon on how, for example, financial inclusion can get benefited with the latest in the technology, whether it's AI, Gen AI, or its sorts of amalgamation. The reason why I wanted to sort of differentiate between, let's say, general AI and generative AI is predominantly because many of the applications do not necessarily require large language models. You don't necessarily need hundreds of billions of parameters to really come out with an use case solution. So there are specific requirements that Gen AI fulfills. There are other requirements that can be easily fulfilled by what I define as small language models. And when I'm saying small, the parameters are not necessarily in billions, but could be in millions, and that could be sufficient. And that could really pave the way for quite a bit of path-breaking work. Now, there's a bit of a dichotomy and contradiction over here. If you look back into the history of the evolution of this science and discipline, and many of you might be aware of the theory of parsimony. The parsimony theory first, that was evolved in the 1960s by Tukey, and then later on taken forward by Box and Jenkins, and all these classical time series models of forecasting, etc., which have been used by all institutions, inclusive of the banking and financial services. The theory of parsimony actually recommends using lesser number of parameters so that the confounding effects can be reduced to a large extent. And then here comes artificial intelligence and its various variants, which propagates hundreds of billions of parameters for serving those requirements. A clear contradiction. So is parsimony theory wrong? Or is the deep learning based neural networks, etc., we are more the latest generative AI with billions of parameters, are they actually making a new sort of breaking through the theory of parsimony? Now the most interesting thing, and I thought I must touch upon, these models, especially on these billions of parameters, technically speaking, on the training data, they achieve great goodness of fit, right? The question is, out of sample, that is what is unknown, whether these models are really being able to achieve that accuracy. That's the experimentation that is going on globally at this moment, with some of the best brains in the world actually involved in understanding whether these models will be equally effective when you are dealing with scenarios which are unknown, which are out of sample. And what's really emerging at this moment, that these models are equally good even out of sample. Not only in terms, it does not give an impression that it is overfitting the training data and won't be effective out of the sample, right? Which is normally the scenario. So that's really, I would say, the biggest breakthrough that these types of large language models or their miniature version are being able to achieve. What are the repercussions in financial inclusion? Think about the population which does not necessarily have credit history. which does not necessarily have lending records to really bank on. So the classical traditional way of doing the underwriting or working out creditworthiness or delinquency or default propensity, if you look at those things, they will use the traditional credit scoring method, use the traditional data sources to really come out with these sorts of solutions. When you don't have that history, what do? And that's where these large language models come in a big way in terms of using alternative data. And alternative data sources could be just what, for example, your utility bills, your rentals that you are doing, really making every month, the data on your devices, your interactions in the social media, and I can just go on. But what's the most important thing over here is, using this alternative data, you are being able to make as decisive, as conclusive, as inferential conclusion as you could have made using the traditional data sources. That's the breakthrough that's really happening. And that is really what is taking us to the next frontier. So the sky's the limit applications are really, all encompassing. But is it all rosy? Not necessarily. There is a reciprocal relationship, and this is most paradoxical, but intuitively also you can, for example, feel it. The more complex a model, the more accurate a model, the less explainable it is. So, when we are talking about financial inclusion, drawing the parallel over here, if I am denied a loan, I have the right to understand why I have been denied the loan. And that's where the explainability of really the model, the deep learning algorithms, etc., they come into play. And in the neural network, in the cognitive science space, the more complex these models are, you are unable to really explain the outputs. So the real challenge over here is to go to that next level in the orbit, where we are being able to derive those high quality algorithmic interventions, but also simultaneously inculcate explainability. When these two things come together, along with ethics and responsible AI, we are going to be in a very, very different space. And that's really the aspiration with which the entire AI community is working. Those guys are doing it.
Good thoughts, Bikramjit. In fact, two key takeaways I think the audience will like. One is, instead of billion data inputs, it's going to come down to million. Maybe I think all of us would like to say, just know the customer as a customer. All other aspects, let AI take care. That's what I would like if I were in the front office of one of the institutions here. Great thing. And then the sky is the limit. Well, I don't think we can even imagine about where all we are going to go. But to help us in taking that imagination forward, I'll request now Ajay to actually continue. He's also got substantial use cases which he's going to talk about. And over to you.
Yeah, thanks. I think a lot is talked about data because data is and will always be the underlying prerequisite or fabric based on which I think all the sophisticated analytics and AI models that will run to bring it closer to humans, right? So having said that, I think we all know what data is, right? And I think there is a huge responsibility that we all carry when it comes to data, be it employee data, be it customer data, and I think being customer at the center, we all are talking about customer inclusion, right? And servicing our customers, including more customers in the financial space, and so on and so forth. I think I will touch up on two sides essentially. I mean, one on the more generic side and the other more specific to life insurance. On a more generic, I think we have a very large distributed geographical outreach in India, right? I mean, we have that opportunity. I mean, you look at the space and the complexity of tier 1, 2, 3, the dimensions of language and the cultures that we see. Even if you travel just about 100 kilometers from Mumbai city, you see a very different world, right? I mean, if you're in Pune or if you're traveling just about 50 to 60 kilometers interiors of Pune or any other tier 2 city, it's a very different culture that you see. And I think the ones that, if we are designing something sitting out of, let's say, a city like Mumbai or Delhi, for a customer who's probably 300-400 kilometers, or maybe forget about 1,000-1,500 kilometers interiors, it's a very different world. And you can imagine the level of customization, or what we call it hyper-personalization, right? Or imagine how our recommendation engines should run to treat every customer of that region uniquely. So that itself is a challenge. And let me bring my thought back to data. The way data is treated or handled in a distributed fashion is a challenge to us, right? We can only talk about data that we have within our organizations, within our safe zones of our own databases, which are very nicely controlled. And within my life insurance company, for instance, I have full control of my data. But what happens if the data is out? And today, we all know how our distribution systems are, right? It's so complex today, intermingled with bank car networks, right? Our own agencies, field on street. We have about 2.4 agents across the country, and like for instance in SBI, we have 1,000 plus branches of our own, and we work with around 42,000 odd branches across our partner community, including SBI. But that's large, right? And imagine the exchange of data that goes from one hand to the other. Like I want to bring up the point which Bikramjit said, we have a very responsible role to play here to make sure that the data that we handle or our partners or community handles is treated responsibly, isn't it? Now that's a corollary to, I wouldn't say it's a hurdle, it's a challenge for ourselves to safeguard our customer privacy, to utilize that data as well as to make sure that we guard their security and privacy, to make sure that it is not misused. Now you can imagine the challenge that we will all have in this statement that I just made. And frankly, I don't have a solution. I still grapple with the thought of how we percolate or do more inclusion. How do I reach out and utilize the data of my customer, of my prospect policy, and make sure that I provide him with that customized or hyper-personalized proposals over time. So, and here is where I want to propose to say that technologies like blockchain, for instance, and I'm really looking forward to see how we keep confidentiality as well as able to share the data with my partner community, so that each of our individuals who are dealing with the customers are able to provide that superior KYC, like Arpan mentioned, as well as keeping the confidentiality of the data secure. I mean that's a little bit of a balanced approach that we will have to figure out. So that's one, and I can give you examples of how we do it in life insurance in our organization. I mean, I'm sure in LI you have some of the examples of persistency, which I think is at the core and the heart of business model of any life insurance company, right? We measure persistency at various levels and various years, and I think more than new business, which I think Vernekar mentioned, the process that we follow in acquiring a new customer and getting him onboarded, the challenge lies in making sure that the customer stays with us for a longer period of time and is happy. And for that, we need to know the customer on an ongoing basis for probably a year, not just a year, but 10 years, 15 years, or maybe 20 years till the time he's got a policy with us, right? And knowing the challenge of an insurance customer, the insurance customer doesn't seldom come to you more often as though like a banking customer. And that itself is a challenge that we have to reach out to the customer and provide with the comfort and satisfaction of utilizing the product over a longer period of time. I mean, the other example is unclaimed. I think we all grapple with that unclaimed situation where we find it difficult to reach out to our customers to pay their own money back, right? Because customer over time has changed his mobile number, he's changed his addresses, and which is quite likely he's moved cities. And for us to reach out to that customer on an ongoing basis in itself is a challenge. Now, here is where I want to bring in a dimension where the boundaries of control are diminishing. It is not enough for us to just be knowing our own customer with the data that I have within my company, right? I need to know, or it will be nice for me to know from my other counterparts or my other financial verticals like a bank, for instance, or maybe a medical health center or some other place where the customer has touch base, and I utilize that data with, of course, in a responsible fashion to ultimately reach out to him and give the benefit of a claim or a maturity or benefit that we need to deliver to that customer. So what I'm trying to derive here is there is a need for us to work in a cohesive manner with our ecosystem. It is not enough for us to just look at our own enterprises. It is essential to make sure that our partners whom we work with are, one, able to explore and bring the necessary data points together so that we are able to do better AI, better modeling, and deliver better services to that customer. And second, make sure that at the end of the day, we give that comfort to that end customer that here is my data which is safe and it is not being misused by organizations or the partner community. Why I'm saying that is because in a life insurance industry and pretty much in the health also, I think we touch a very sensitive chord of individual's health history. Unlike the financial history, which is typically mutual funds or banks have a record, we go a little deeper into touching a very close to heart, private or sensitive health history of our customers, isn't it? And which, knowing the typical mindset of the Indian mindset, we are very, very careful about sharing our health records or our past health records to the insurer. I mean, yeah, things are changing, but if we are able to give the comfort to that customer that here is your data secured and it will be treated in a fashion which is ultimately going to benefit him, I think we will go a good step forward to improve inclusion of insurance or protection, I would say, more than insurance with return or ULIPs. The protection component within our country. Because today I think we know the penetration of our protection is like just minuscule. I mean, it's just in the order of 1.3, 1.4 rate. I think there's a long way to go for us to really get each of our citizens insured with life cover. And I do believe if we take care of these 2-3 areas, we will be able to give the comfort to our end customer in the tier 2, tier 4 city, so that we are able to get more and more people, insured, which is such a critical piece, and we've seen that how it impacts in the pandemic days.
Good, Ajay. In fact, it was very good that you spoke about cases relating to how finally culminating in insurance, selling it for life, etc. Great. In fact, the underlying point on all this is how are we going to actually use the data that we have, and the common thread is what is AI going to do. A lot has been said up till now on these areas, so it's going to be a challenge for you to continue and see how further we take this rocket ahead.
Okay, yes, and I think very, very informative points coming from Dr. Chaudhuri and Ajay, and of course Vijosh, who has been speaking on this. So I'm going to quickly talk about 2-3 things over here on what we are looking at as a country jointly, irrespective of industry. So in this country, the first thing that we need to fight is the fat finger problem. The fat finger problem is a problem that happens on a 5-inch screen where people from different age segments, be it 65 or be it 50, find it difficult to type. Right? The fat finger problem, therefore, opens up a very new genre known as voice, vernacular, video, and Bharat.
Why not have artificial intelligence convert what he thinks directly instead of
Yes, in fact, if you look at the Neuralink chip, which Mr. Musk has come out with, right, actually tells your doctor on Practo that this guy already has 2 blockages, and on the 3rd blockage, he has a 98% probability of a heart attack. Right? It's called a Neuralink. You can go and see it. The first implant has been done a month back, and we believe that it is the future for medicine science. Anyways, coming back to India. When I say Bharat, I mean a country which speaks multiple languages, has a $10 smartphone, and does not know their IFSC code number of a bank to give a standing instruction, right? So if we want inclusion to happen, the first thing that AI is going to do is to uncomplicate. I think it's very simple. The work of AI in this country is going to be principally be responsible and to uncomplicate. Now once you have uncomplicated, then comes the recommendation and intelligence part. Why should I trust you? Why can't I take my own calls? I don't know you. This is going to happen with consistency. These are the questions that are going to be solved with consistency and a probable hit rate for the consumer. Think about it. A person who runs aloo sabji puri dukan in Punjab wants to invest in a SIP, but he wants to take it slow and he wants to invest in a 20 rupee SIP every day. However, all the ads that we come out with under investor education says the minimum entry point is 500 rupees. So how does AI solve that? At the time of actually educating the investor or any purchase point person, Ajay spoke about insurance, life insurance, under-penetrated. Well, let's talk about mutual funds. This very person speaking to you did not invest 5 years back. And he has an economics background, right? So what I'm trying to say over here, the way AI is going to solve our basic problems for this country is going to be very, very simple. We as an organization, we as an industry need to make it more responsible. The best part about India is that it's a highly adaptable nation, right? We come from black phones to smartphones, right? And from there, today we are saying that, hey, think about it. When you go to your Bard or ChatGPT and say, I want to invest 500 rupees in a gold SIP, and you're not aware of the company, you're not aware of the product, but your AI records tells you that, hey, tells the platform, hey, he is not a very aggressive investor, so let's go for something which has to do with government bonds, right? So that's the role that AI is going to play responsibly, and only if you can be responsible, only if you can uncomplicate, then only you can be inclusive. Now coming to what Nippon, India Mutual Fund, is thinking on these terms, we believe it's very easy to be very flashy about things to the consumers who already know mutual funds, but that's not the purpose of building an AI model. I think the very fact that we are working on a data lake program is to go out to that 70% of the country who is below 32, which is our country, the age 32, and across regions which are not the top 50 cities. I think AI is going to be used with the 3V format which I mentioned some time back to be responsible, to uncomplicate, and thus penetrate and get your inclusion for any business that you create. That's my 2 minutes.
Great, right, Arpan. I still wonder, how did you know that the average age in this group is less than 32? Anyway, I think he's got some AI tool which has helped him, and one of the other things I always notice is that in sessions like these, generally the speakers will say that whatever I'm talking does not necessarily reflect my company's stand. Here is one different speaker who spoke about what Nippon is doing openly to everybody, and others they possibly learn from him. Great. Vijosh, it's going to be a challenge now. How are you going to now conclude all of this together from a tech perspective and say, well, this is what is a day for?
So I'll just summarize from my previous talk track in the beginning. I said government is bringing generative AI in a big way. Bashini was an example, and these are all targeted for inclusion. And also we are percolating it into neighboring countries, etc., ONDC and so many other programs. Prime Minister speaks, it gets translated. Now so the why part is already answered, that AI is going to diffuse at a rate which is unbelievable. And it is going to be a co-pilot, it is not going to take over anybody's job. It's going to be a co-pilot. Now coming to the how part of the story is very important. I mean, where do we start? So one of the blessings which we have in this country is that most of us are educated in English. We have a skilled force who know English. And number 2 is that fairly all the companies that we talk of are fairly computerized. And we have applications which are already doing whatever they are supposed to do. Now the how part in this is that we got to look at these applications. We bought it from vendors, whoever in those days were there, and they were all larger applications because predominantly insurance examples or mutual fund examples have been here. So let's say a claim or a policy renewal or a quote, everything put into one application. Or a banking, if you look at it, a CASA plus now a payment, etc., all being in one application. So the first step is to think of these as separate modules. Think of loan as a separate module, payment as a separate module, CASA as a separate module, or a new business as a separate module, which means a separate vendor supplying it. Number one. So that is modularizing applications, thinking of this vast ecosystem this country has with startups and fintechs who are all taking AI into their, like the government, AI is being included in their applications. So the way to think of it is, think of these large applications which we are using to break it into smaller parts, which popularly called as microservices, but I don't want to use that word, but into business domains, and then look for what is in the market and how can we use it. That is number one. Now, how long is this journey? It's not going to be 6 months, it's not going to be 1 year. Most of the customers who have done it have a 5-year roadmap, all the way till starting 23 to 28. So, and where are they starting? They are starting, and there was this question of DPDP Act or Privacy Act. So what has happened is a lot of these applications have customer defined in all of those applications. One of the way to look at is, look at the way product is being defined and customer is being defined, and do we want it in those applications, or do we want to take a step back and move it out, and then only the customer ID flows in. Now when you have customer at one place, maybe the profile and the portfolio accumulated in one place helps you teach these LLMs. Now coming to LLM, this is not a proprietary for everybody. This started from Stanford University, and LLMs have been taken by companies. They have, they are in all shapes and forms, large language models, small language models. There is a lot of open source, different companies. You can take the one that suits you. But once you have a customer, the customer operations, 75% of the use cases in generative AI is in 3 areas. Number one is customer operations. Look at customer, the way it is being treated, profile and portfolio. It gives you for the same cost, so the same money that you spend, it gives you a productivity gain of up to 35%. The next area is looking at the way marketing and sales has been done. Here, roughly 5 to 15% is the productivity gain. What do? The way generative AI can help you is personalized recommendations, etc., creating campaigns. And the first bucket in customer operations was self-service, passwordless, etc., and the third bucket, which is highly productive, and a lot of companies, what they are doing is they are creating software engineering departments, and a lot of companies are saying that we are a technology company with a banking license or an insurance license, and these software engineering, all the software that we all use have a common denominator, which is the developer who develops it. So the developer, your applications, speed, ability to scale, everything is to the extent the developer has coded. And with generative AI, this code can be generated by AI, which will be far more efficient, is another point that is to be considered. So productivity gains in the form of coding, in the form of everybody who is sitting here will be wondering, where is my Java or a .NET or a Python version? What version am I using? Generative AI can very easily tell you, this is your version and this is the most stable version it can to be used. It can do OCRs, it can do composing campaigns for you, it can help customers interact with you in natural language. These are all benefits, but I just wanted to touch upon the part that how do you do it? Go look at your applications, look at the way customer and product is being treated. That is the point to start with, and then it's a journey of 4 or 5 years where you will incrementally, you will figure it out by breaking those applications into business domains and try and evaluate fintechs as to which is that fintech which caters to you, or probably because a lot of companies are having engineering departments within. So a bank or an insurance company, maybe one of them would develop it, and the next generation is all going to be tech company with the banking license.
Great, Vijosh. In fact, that was a good thread that he continued from what Arpan said, unsimplify or uncomplicate, make it simple. So he said, break it down into small components, not using the word microservices anyway. And then finally culminating into, most of you must have heard possibly 4 or 5 years ago saying that, will banks continue to exist when fintechs are there? Banking may be there, but banks, whether they will be there. I think one of the things that has been proven now is banks will continue to exist, and that's what he rounded off by saying whether it is banks or insurance, they will have a large technology component. But then technology is also going to be done using AI. I wish we could continue our discussions, but then lunch is already there and we are delayed substantially. Only one last jocular point. I don't know how many of you here, we are almost reaching the March time when we have to write our performance appraisals or give other things. I think some of you are already thinking whether you can use AI to do that, because it's very difficult to recall what all somebody did and KRAs. Yeah, so whether you can do that, and at least if nothing else for the customer, I take care of myself from an AI perspective. Anyway, on that happy note, a quick set of questions from your side. Anybody wants to ask any questions, want to challenge us as a panel and then get some clarity? I would only suggest that if you can introduce yourself quickly, where you're from, so that it will help us to give a focus. And if you want one of us to specifically answer, you would give that name as well.
Hi, thanks a lot for your insights on on this very trending topic, I would say. And I'm Chaudhuri, I work with PwC. And my question is not specifically for anyone, but it's like an overall question. So Mr. Vijosh said, that the AI is not going to replace human beings, which is in a way true. But there was a quote in my reading that, though AI is not going to replace human beings as such, human beings who are well versed with AI will definitely replace the people who are not. So just wanted to know your thoughts on that, as in how quickly this adoption is expected to take place, because right now also, though there are many initiatives or adoptions of AI that you have mentioned, but it's still kind of, I think it's still to reach at a very considerable kind of pace. So just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yes, since you said that, picked off from Vijosh, certainly wants to say, or having been a moderator, I have the right to actually talk even before others can talk. One of the small points I wanted to say is, I don't know whether you're aware, a lot of students have started using AI for their project reports and theses. The universities, the professors don't like it, but then that's like having an open book examination. I don't know how many people have experienced open books. It's tough to write an open book exam. It's easy to go with a closed book exam style. The same thing is happening here. Everybody thinks that AI is going to make life of people, the students, easy in terms of getting with their projects, but it's not there. Because the professor is also going to use an AI to see whether there is plagiarism, what is it that has been done, and then he will give minus marks instead of giving the right marks. So it's a two-way sword. The point I wanted to say is, it appears as if acceptance or use of AI is low. It's not the case. It's actually going very fast. It's more or less like smartphones. If I were to ask a question here, I've actually seen this in remote areas in villages like in Mizoram, Nagaland. There will be a 70-year-old grandmother who can use a smartphone better with more dexterity than I can use it. She doesn't know English, she doesn't know how to read or write, but she knows how to use the smartphone because that's what is a compulsion for her. And my gut feeling is AI will also follow the same thing, but I will leave it to Vijosh. And then others also.
So to your question of learning, let me first tell you that currently the focus should be where all can I use. So that doesn't require a lot of learning. If it is a bank, credit underwriting or all of those places where AI can be used. And to make it a little simple, and I reiterated earlier, there is vision which will pick up from a document, is a basic understanding everybody can say. There is speech which can be in any language, that's a basic understanding. There is tons of documents from which things can be summarized, tons of documentation, that's also basically another thing. If you have a Teams call, it can summarize. We have co-pilots in Microsoft where it says so many calls happened, whether you attended or not attended, it will summarize and tell you. So these are all basics, that's how the co-pilot, so these basics will give anybody an idea where all in their respective area of business can they apply for more productivity. Now coming to the second point of if you want to double click, then forget about Gen AI taking over anything else. Clearly people need to have a distinction between what is statistics, what is the scope of statistics, what is the scope of machine learning, and what is the scope of generative AI. This understanding has to be there, and neither of them are going to replace each other. Gen AI will help a machine learning model or a statistical analysis which you are doing by generating a lot of data, but it will not take over that function. Having said this, if you have to learn AI or ML or statistics, basically it starts from class 9th or 10th where you learned linear algebra onwards till generative AI, and it's not going to be a 1 month or a 2 month course. Ajay mentioned that earlier. It's not going to be certification from somewhere. It is going to be a dedicated, a lot of people come and ask me, where do you go and learn? One of them is NPTEL, if you search online, which is the skills of the government of India, where IITs are having good courses on that. Alternatively, all the IIMs, all the IITs and everybody has courses which are running for a year and a half, where all these basics are taught. So there is no magic course only for the LLM. It is all the way from stats to, algebra to LLM, which is taught. If you really want to become an expert, you will have to spend at least a year and a half or.
I just want to bring in one dimension here, a bit of probably look like fiction or in future. You mentioned whether humans will be better than AI or vice versa. See, humans have created AI, right? With mathematics and advanced equations. But there are definitely elements within humans because of which AI will not beat humans, right? I mean, we know emotions, empathy, some of these things are not really there in a bot, right? Or in any model. Right? But obviously, that is in future probably being constantly debated. So here is a competition that humans have with AI, right? And we compete with each other. And competition, is always improving the ability to, be more intellectual and be more able to deliver better outcomes. So there is going to be competition to humans. AI bots will be much more smarter and intelligent, and at some point in time probably, and it's already there in some bots where empathy and emotions are also shown by bots, right? But I just want to highlight the positive side of it is that a bot can scale and a model can scale, right? And not dependent on one intellectual brain capacity. And scale is what will give us that ability to reach out to the masses at a much faster pace. And I think that's, to me, the power of AI, where we can deliver some of the services or customization features faster than each individual human can replicate that across the large masses that we have in our country. So that's my point.
Just to quickly add a point, it's Friday, it's 7 p.m. Friends are waiting for you in the local downtown restaurant, and you have to make a deck. And you go and actually ask for AI as a service to help you make the deck. You have your raw materials, you just put it in, and the deck gets published in half an hour, and you're able to call it an evening. I believe that AI as a service, be it for the working professional or be it for the consumer in the times to come, will actually get commoditized. You can choose AI as a service like an internet subscription, what speed you want it. So we should also start thinking in these lines. I think it's a service tool which is going to make our lives better, faster, more productive.
You know that not from a tech company person, I think is a great one. Wanted to add something?
Very quickly, the essence of the code that you are making, and it's a very popular code, it's now very much being quoted, especially in the corporate forum, right? To ensure that people working at all levels need to have the cognizance and that adaptability to embrace AI. And why it is critical is because the way AI is evolving, right? So adaptability is the key. Even dinosaurs could not survive because they could not adapt. So, and there are lots of predictions, and they are not off the mark at this moment. The testimony says that let's say in the next 3 to 5 years, coding will be an obsolete skill. And that's very much in play. But if you just look into the recent past, you would see a lot of craze, a lot of euphoria. Young kids were put into coding and they were learning this, that, etc. Now there is a lot of apprehension. Should I put my child into coding at this stage? Is it really going to be a viable career option? Possibly not. So, there are lots of no-code, low-code tools, platforms are emerging rampant. Essentially, at the click of a button, you might be able to accomplish many things. So essentially, the job descriptions all will change. So there will be opportunity to move up the value chain for individuals. And that is where it's up to the individuals to make sure that they unlearn, relearn, keep themselves abreast of the evolving technologies and make the most of it. Right? Otherwise, there will be like dinosaurs.
Right, thanks a lot. This question all of us answered. I think we'll have quickly a couple of more questions you wanted to ask, and maybe only one of us will answer. Don't worry. Yeah.
Generally, when it's coming to AI, the most of them are apprehensive because the data privacy is another factor. How well we are equipped on, ensuring that whatever the communication we do on this platform is safe. So that's where one. And second is another question that is coming in. While we're talking about, I have not seen a canvas where totally where the people have moved on to an AI platform and building things. It's all incremental things what we are talking about. Is there anything which you can share with us? Because that's where the apprehension or thinking which is coming from people.
Yes, Vijosh.
So on the first part of the question, the data privacy part, let's understand the structure of a LLM or the large language model or small language model. There is a foundation model which is trained on all publicly available data. And so far as Microsoft is, I didn't want to bring my company's name here, but so far as Microsoft is concerned in this part, and everybody spoke about responsible AI, any customer uses a co-pilot and gets into any litigation, Microsoft is committed to fight that legal case, all expenses to Microsoft. Okay, so that is number one. And second part is your data. Now, what happens is when you start using AI from any company, you have something called your own tenant in the cloud, where that LLM or SLM, whatever you use, resides. And their data is only lying there. Why did I bring that earlier commitment of legal is because it's so sensitive that we have to have a global view of fighting legal cases. So this data doesn't go anywhere, it's just there. And to the second part of your question, which is why is it a slow process? Now it depends upon where you look at it from. If you look at it from a Word, Excel, popular tools or a Power BI or kind of tools, it's there for you. Where is it slow? It is slow when you want to use it as a co-pilot, a relationship manager wants to use it for a customer. That's where it is a little slow because what is happening, the reality is that a lot of our customers, esteemed customers like Ajay and we have Arpan here, everybody has heard a lot of theory. Now they want how to execute it. And it happens that people are trying to learn where exactly can it be applied, because there is a cost to it. And can I change all of that data or all of those systems and saying that they are all monoliths or monsters? It is not possible. It takes a journey. So that's going to be slow.
Right, yes.
Mr. Vijosh, you said about the litigation and the thing, and I'm taking cue from that. Recently, there was some incident in some courts where some lawyer, he quoted some precedent. Actually, it was found that there was no case law to be used as a this thing, but his court, the judge was created a new case law, which was produced as evidence, as a precedent, but there was nothing, but it was generated by AI.
I will not be able to comment on that, but I can only say that there is a publicly published Microsoft customer commitment for co-pilots, CCC, which is there in the public domain. We cover all our customers, but specific case I will not be able to comment.
Maybe I can give a little bit of confidence, having been on the regulatory side. Under the DPDP rules and regulations which are proposed to be coming, there will be a framework which will be saying what is it that can be used as evidence in a court of law and what cannot be done, in conjunction with the Information Technology Act, which also says what is it that is digitally allowed in a court of law. I think the answer will come there. I'm sure the courts will also get to know that this is what is possibly one of the downsides of using AI, and they will come out with something. In between, for a short period of time, there could be some cases which may go this way, but my gut feeling is certainly the government and the courts will come out with something. Any other last quick question, or I know the stomachs will start rumbling. Great. I think I must thank my fellow panelists. It was a great and an interesting session. I hope you all found it valuable. Over to Saha now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for moderating this, and thank you all the panelists. You have been extremely, articulate, and I think people have got the value of time and money's worth. So now we end this beautiful session. I mean, it could have gone on and on, I know, but it's lunchtime and we have one more session after that. So we'll start with felicitation. We'll request Mr. Ganesh Kumar to start from his left, extreme left, with Mr. Vernekar. Thank you, sir. Mr. Vijosh. Mr. Arpanarghya. And last but not the least, Dr. Bikramjit Chaudhuri. We'll request for a group photograph of all the panelists. Thank you. I have a couple of announcements before we break for lunch. We break for lunch and we come back sharp at 3 o'clock. We have got a very interesting session next, which is financial inclusion through NBFCs and small finance banks. And we have a very good, interesting speakers and a moderator from PwC. You have been handed over a lucky draw coupon. So after the end of the session, post lunch, we'll be collecting one counterpart of that coupon, and we'll organize the lucky draw after the end of the session, post lunch, and there are exciting prizes which is awaiting us. So kindly come back after lunch. We'll collect the lucky draw coupons after the end of the session, post lunch, and we'll come back here sharp at 3 o'clock. Thank you.